Good day and welcome to this week's edition of Newsmakers. Newsmakers is a production of the Rock County Civics Academy in conjunction with JATV. Each week we try and bring someone into the studio who is making the news, sometimes quietly, sometimes with big headlines, but most often they're making a splash because they do make a difference in the quality of life we enjoy here in Rock County. It's my pleasure today to welcome into the studio Mr. Agriculture, Jim Raymond. Jim, welcome.
Wow, and you called me Mr. Agriculture. This is great. I wish my dad was here to hear you say that.
Well, your dad would be proud of
I
you.
hope so.
You know, and your mom's favorite son. I mean, she'd be patting you on the shoulder.
Well, that sounds good. I will say that I've done my whole life in agriculture. I worked for the M&I Bank for a lifetime, and even before that, I was in the Peace Corps, and believe it or not, I worked in a bank in the Philippines. So it was
goodness.
like,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything I've really done of significance that wasn't lending money to farmers.
We could spend an entire show talking about agricultural lending practices.
Oh, sure.
It is one of those mysterious specialties within banking that, honestly, I'm fascinated by it.
Well, you recognize it as a specialty, and not everybody does. A lot of people would say, that's all you do? Yeah, and it is a specialty because farmers use so much money. Oh. And as a result of that, they have people who just do ag lending. And it is different because not only are they living on the farm, it's their house, it's all, everything is there. Maybe it's been in their family for a long time. It's also this big business that's there at the same time. And you don't have many industries that are like that. I mean, most people get up in the morning and they say, I'm going to work, and they drive someplace.
And they're guaranteed at the end of a certain period of time there's going to be a paycheck.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're in agriculture, if you're a grain farmer, you're going from the time you make that huge investment in seed and support in the spring until harvest in the fall, and not everybody sells it right out of the field.
No.
And so that's a long time to bet on the come, I guess.
Well, you're betting on the come, it's just the numbers have gotten so big recently. I mean, even I've been out of the bank now for a decade or over a decade, but at any rate, the numbers have just really gotten bigger. It's $800 of crop input costs to put that crop in the field per acre. And if you have 1,000 acres, do the math. It's $800,000 worth of betting on having a crop that's going to be worth more than that at the end of the year.
And can you do that on $3 corn? I don't think so.
No, but it's 4 now.
We made it
better.
to 4, but it's better. But it's always. I like to think of agriculture as being one of the biggest gambles that anybody can ever imagine, because there's so many things that you are dependent upon that you have no control.
Yeah, and I'm always, I worked with a lot of different farmers, but you were always impressed with the fact that, for the most part, most of them didn't get too excited.
Yeah.
They were able to handle the risk and kind of live through it and just work forward into the next year if things didn't work out the way they wanted that year.
Well, and having grown up in the world of agriculture, I completely understand and completely appreciate the challenge. And
so you were a farm boy.
I had the distinct pleasure of a family farm that's been in the family for 135 years, 140 years.
Wow.
And so we had a little bit of, we had that luxury.
See, and that's another piece about agriculture. When you're in the community, people they want to like farmers. They want to, partly because their grandfather ran a farm. There's somebody in their family who go back in history, not too far, a couple of generations, and a lot of those people have an attachment to the farm.
Well, and the farm, in addition to being a business, was a great way to ensure that families stayed together.
Yep. Still is.
And it still is.
Yep.
I mean, family farms, they get passed down generation to generation to generation. And now we're in that era where consolidation is
Yeah.
the big deal.
Yeah.
You don't have the small dairy farms you used to have. The numbers keep shrinking, and as the number of farms shrink, the big mega farms, they're they're everything anymore, and that creates a whole different set of variables and challenges and problems. The fact is, though, that every good farmer, in order to stay a good farmer, has to find a way to get away every now and then and do something different.
Oh, okay.
And by golly, you and a friend put together a trip to Ireland.
We did.
And I grew up in a part of northeast Iowa that was settled by Germans and Irish. And the reason it was settled in the fashion it was the geography was very, very close to what you would see as you tour the countryside in Ireland.
Sure.
The climate was a whole lot different, but the geography was the same. So there's a bit of Irish heritage there. How did this trip come together? Because it sounds like a fun trip for a group of people.
Yeah. Well, real quick thumbnail. My good friend is Jim Massey. He was the former editor of Country Today. People might recognize that name. And so we've been friends for 30, 40 years. And he said, hey, let's put a trip together. And so we did a couple other trips, went to Greece and such, but Ireland was the next one. It was like, let's do Ireland. And we have an attachment, just like you've said. There's a lot of migrants have moved here, and so there's an Irish kind of connection in that way. And it's just interesting to us. And so before I go and visit another place, I like to do some history, and I gather some information on the place where we're going and all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot of fascinating Irish history that's out there. Some of it not so pleasant because they've gone through some tumultuous times, to tell the truth. But the idea of putting together a trip for us and 40 friends was kind of appealing. It was pretty fun. We advertised it kind of as a trip to Ireland. We'll be there 11 days, and it'll have an agricultural bent to it. It was not designed as this is going to be all farms and cows and plows. That's not it. But we did visit some dairy farms, and we did study it a little bit. We went to a dairy research farm, some things like that, and we learned a lot.
I was going to say, dairy farming on the Emerald Isle is really a lot different than what we are accustomed to here in Wisconsin.
See, and I think we don't know that unless you have traveled, there or other places. Sometimes we get caught in this thing of, well, they probably do it like we do it. They're going to milk cows. How much different can it be?
Well,
it's totally different.
Let's start with the basics. The average size of an Irish farm is relatively small compared to what we have in Wisconsin with the few small farmers that are left, right?
And 300 acres is probably the max, and I'll talk maybe a little bit about that. There's kind of a limiting factor that says, oh, 300 acres, wow. So the answer to that is yes. They're significantly smaller. And there's a lot of other pieces that are there we soon discovered. The big one is that 95% of the cattle, the dairy cattle in Ireland, are on pasture. 90+% of the dairy cattle in our country are in a confinement situation. There are reasons for that, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but just think of that significant difference. 95% of those cattle are outdoors.
That's huge. And to do that, you have to have pasture land that can support them on a year-round basis, right?
Yeah, and rotational grazing has become something. We do that as well, rotational grazing here in the United States, but not on the level that they do. They are pros at it. And by rotational grazing, what you're saying is that those cattle are moved almost daily from one pasture to another pasture to another pasture, and you need about you need like 30 days, of time to have that period of time before you can come back and repasture. So about 40 days really of time.
So let's do some comparative statistics. The average Irish farm is how many acres compared to a Wisconsin?
Well, it'll be less than 300.
Less
and
than
300 is
acres.
kind of the reason I mention that is that there the majority, these cattle are all going to be pastured. Well, if they're going to be pastured, that means they have to walk from the milking parlor to the pasture. Well, you can't have them walking 10 miles.
No,
It don't
no,
work
exactly,
like that.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so the pastures have to be kind of close to you. So here, when we want to expand, we build another barn, fill
Yeah.
it with cows.
Yeah.
There, they buy another farm.
And
Then now I've got another 300 acres or something like that, and I can build around that. So they buy another farm.
there is an old measure, and I'm not sure it still applies. In my Western years, we used to have the conversation with my rancher friends, and they'd talk about the fact that they needed 3 acres per cow to support a cow over the course of the cow's life. But 3 acres per cow is a lot when you start thinking about dairy herds of 70, 80 head on 300 acres here. That it's a significant
We can do it
difference.
on less acres here
Yeah.
because we provide. We aren't pasturing. We're
Okay.
providing corn silage. We're providing other
Yep,
feed other than that, and so our number is smaller than that
Okay.
here. But there, the 3 acres per cow is probably pretty close, I would guess. Yeah. Talking about the dairy industry there and that significance of the number of cattle that are being pastured and developing that just a little bit. There, they have to bring these cattle to the dairy,
Right.
and you say, oh, they're just getting grass all day, and you see our feed is usually a higher quality, higher energy, whole lot of differences to it. And so as a result, our herd production is greater. So while we have 1.2 million cows in Wisconsin, they have 1.6 million cows there, but their production per cow is only about 15,000 pounds per cow. Our production per cow is about 25,000. So we produce more per cow, and they produce less per cow but have more cows. And so as you're ending up producing as a nation,
Yeah.
the vast, it's very similar in total production.
Ireland is an island, and
makes a
that's a
big
huge
difference.
limiter
Yeah.
in terms of available space. Plus, it's got a population of 6 million.
Yep, close to
roughly,
Wisconsin. Yep.
close to Wisconsin's population, and you have the urban sprawl issue, and you have farmland preservation issues, and
Sure.
because they're competing interests.
Yeah, and they are an island, and it is like you say, it's a little bit limiting that way, and it is this half the size of Wisconsin. So if you're going to travel there, you can in fact travel around the country, which is what we did when we were there. We kind of circled the country and visited some farms, but saw a lot of the tourist attractions as well. But you can do that there, because if you looked at Wisconsin and you said, well, I've got 10 or 11 days, can I travel the southern half of Wisconsin? Yeah, you could pretty well. And that's a little bit of what we did when we were there.
Okay, tell me about the trip. You had 11 days. It has an ag flavor, but there's other things in Ireland besides agriculture.
Yeah, there's beer, there's whiskey, and a whole lot of pubs. It's a lot of fun. Do they have the Titanic Museum? Yes, they have. There's a lot of touristy kinds of things that are available to people there, and we took advantage of that.
Oh, sure.
One of the first places we visited was a farm. For a farm that produces some of the cream that goes into Bailey's Irish Cream. And so there is physical cream in Bailey's Irish Cream. And it was a great trip, and you're getting kind of that mix. You see, you're going and going to Bailey's Irish Cream, but at the same time, you're getting the feel for the fact that the milk in that product comes from dairy farms.
Real cows.
From real cows that are really there. Yep.
Prominent breeds of cattle?
Holstein.
Holstein.
Yeah, it's pretty much Holstein across the country. I don't think I ever saw any other breeds. I imagine there are similar to what we have here in. We're primarily Holstein here in Wisconsin, the black
Although,
and white cow.
you know, there are other breeds
Oh,
out
sure.
there. For the purists, I mean, they're
Yes. Yeah. It was an interesting trip in a variety of ways. I do want to emphasize this one piece is that because it's an island, it's surrounded by the ocean, and we say, well, how come they can pasture all these cattle and we have difficulty doing that?
right, right.
Here in Wisconsin, we have confined systems. There are reasons for that. Our winters are kind of harsh. They start in November. They can't, start harvesting any grass or hay until May. And so you got this period of time in between in there where you have to feed the cattle. So that's what we do. We feed them year round. We bring the feed to the cattle and all the other kinds of stuff. Ireland is completely different. Even though it's further north than what we are physically. It is closer to the Arctic Circle than we are. The northern part of Ireland is kind of on the same latitude as the southern part of Hudson Bay. I mean, it's north.
Yeah.
But I said, well, does it ever snow here? Oh, yeah, we got snow. It was about 10 years ago, something like. I remember getting a little bit. It doesn't snow. It doesn't get hard cold. Can it get below freezing? Yes, but it doesn't stay there. And as a result, their season for having pasture grass runs pretty much from mid-February to mid-November. So you are on a 10-month pasturing availability. Now they do harvest some hay and they carry them through. But you know what? During those months of December and January, that's when the cows are dried off and have their calves. Okay. So they said
they worked out the balance.
They worked it out because they said the biggest reason that cows leave the herd, in other words, you cull cows out and they end up in McDonald's, they end up going to hamburger someplace. Right. Biggest reason is if you got a breeding problem, it doesn't work because you want to be able to shut the doors during that period of time. You want to not have to milk cows during December and January because they're dried off and having calves, and then they come back, and in February, they're back in the pasture. It's a great system for a place that's got 10 months of the year when they can pasture. We can do 7.
Yeah, at best.
So it's a bit at best. And that's the main difference. And you'd say, oh, now I get it. That's why we have confinement systems here where we harvest the crops and bring them to the cattle, and there they have pasture most of the year.
That was where I was going to go next. Do we see the same amount or the same proportion of cash grain being produced in Ireland?
No.
It's a different agricultural world.
Yeah, there's crops they can't raise. We raise a lot of alfalfa here because it's for feed for cattle or whatever. Right. They can't raise alfalfa there. It won't dry out. They get 50 inches of rain in many parts of Ireland, and so they get, it's just a different thing. The other piece that they've got that they struggle with is there's a lot of rocks. And rocks and big equipment, a lot of times that doesn't work very well together.
That doesn't mix very well.
Yeah. And so you don't see, we're blessed here. We have all this Great Plains area. We have all of this Midwestern soil. We have Illinois and Indiana and all those big states that are corn and soybeans. And they don't have that.
Yeah. When you're on a trip like this, and knowing your banker background, is it one of those where you had the opportunity to sit down with an Irish banker and compare notes?
I didn't.
And compare lending practices and strategies?
I did not. The only banker I really met was a beef farmer. Okay. He had worked at a bank for some time, and he had decided to go into raising organic beef. And that was an interesting stop. An interesting opportunity for us to talk, because there we got in and talked some about the subsidies that they get and we don't. We don't get many subsidies in agriculture. I think there's this perception that we do, but but we don't get a lot. And if we can keep Mr. Trump from screwing up some of our markets overseas, well, we'll keep away from that. I'm a kind of a free market guy, and tariffs are not part of my
vocabulary.
Yeah, vocabulary very much. But at any rate, if we can keep from doing that, we're happier, I think, here. There, they provide a lot of subsidies to agriculture, partly because they recognize that tourism, when you've got an agricultural country, you want to have cows out on pasture. You want to have sheep out in the countryside. You want to have things that are out there for people to say, wow, look at this great country. Look how beautiful it is. And it is. It's beautiful. And it's green. It's you got all these pastures and all these these stone fences and all that kind of fun stuff. But they recognize the importance of that to their tourism industry, and so they subsidize agriculture much higher than we do. And that was part of the beef piece that I was just alluded to, was that in that farm, it was a good 30% of their income came from a government subsidy, and in doing that, they have a whole lot of rules and regulations that they have to follow.
Do we see the degree of diversification in farming in Ireland that we see here, where you've got somebody who has cattle? They may be dairy cattle, but then they've got an alfalfa operation. They may have a cash grain operation with corn or soybeans on top of that. And if you had a beef around, just from a diversification of markets perspective, or are they so constrained on land that they can't really?
Farms are pretty small.
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't know as we really had an opportunity to look at that and think about that when we were there. But the farms are pretty small. And are they apt to have a pig or two in the yard? Yes, they are, but not commercially. I don't think so much. Yeah.
So a lot of, well, proportionately, a lot of dairy farmers are doing a lot with small herds, and they're making it work in a market of about the size of the state of Wisconsin. And they
actually, it's about half the size of the state of Wisconsin, but the population is kind of the same. But it isn't. You know, the crazy part about it is, we export about 15% of our dairy products overseas, so it's important to us.
Yeah.
They export 85%. 85% of their dairy products find another market in the world, and it comes here. You can go to Woodman's, buy Kerrygold butter. You know, that's the big there are all these big differences that are there in the same industry, and that was interesting.
It has to be interesting when you start thinking about the fact that they are so dependent upon a world market, and that puts a different twist on the economics as you go back to banking again.
Yeah,
the whole environment is just fascinating, just absolutely fascinating.
Well, I would say that they're pleased with the way things are going right now. When we were there, dairy prices were decent. They were doing all right. This is May of earlier this year, but they were doing okay. And I think they like this piece of having their cattle out on pasture. I think there's a comfort to it. Going out and rounding them up and bringing them back. You know, they milk twice a day there. Here we milk 3 times a day. Ours is a more intense effort to milking and all the other kind of stuff. It's a little more industrialized. They've got the comfort of being outdoors and going out and getting the cattle, just like when I was a kid.
Well, do we see the mechanization with the fancy milking parlors that are artificially intelligence aided and
yeah. And the place we went to first was that Bailey's Irish Cream place.
Yeah.
The guy had a carousel parlor, which is a parlor that has there's like 24 stanchions on it, and it goes in a circle. The cows get in, ride around while they're being milked, and they get to the other end and they get off. Now we have carousel parlors here too, but I was just surprised that there on a 300 cow herd, they got a carousel parlor. All right, that's pretty good.
Quite interesting, because those those sorts of products, they don't come cheap.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't come cheap.
Yeah.
The typical farmer, as you chat with them here in the United States, and nobody's typical, but but I mean, the stereotype is I've never run into a farmer who was 100% satisfied with everything all the time.
Oh, really?
And believe it or
I
not,
worked at the bank for 40
yeah,
years.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah. You never heard that. You never heard that. That's kind of a universal thing with people in agriculture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just across the globe.
Yeah, there's both the optimism of the year's over, hey, next year it's going to be good, you know, and being optimistic about where things are going. And at the same time, there's this pessimistic piece that's always there of, oh man, it's not raining, you know, things haven't happened right, whatever. So farmers are always in that kind of caught in that in between.
And I think part of the real joy in farming is the fact that you are in tune and have to be in tune with Mother Nature. You become part of the soil. You become part of the environment, and
It's
while
just,
you are dependent upon it, it's also the source of your risk and your reward.
yeah, and it isn't gardening. I understand that, but just imagine you have a garden in your backyard, and the joy that you have of going out there and working in the ground and raising something and seeing it, putting a seed there and seeing it. I talk about the miracles that are in agriculture. It's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah.
Farmers get that every day on a huge scale, you know, and they're always fine-tuning what they do. Precision agriculture is the word that's out there now, and it really is. It's when you plant that corn plant, it is exactly 5 or 7 inches apart. Every plant is perfectly laid. And when we fertilize now, we have the ability to variably change the rate of application so that everything is trying to fine-tune it so that we can produce that crop.
And do it more efficiently.
And do it more efficiently all the time, and we get better at it all the time. When I was a kid, 100 bushel corn was a big deal. Now it's 200.
Yeah. It's amazing how times change and we change and adapt with the times.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fabulous trip. I look forward to hearing more about it, and perhaps we'll have you back again just to get a little bit more in depth and find out how agriculture in Ireland compares to what we're so accustomed to in Wisconsin.
There we are.
And we discover that, yes, there's differences, but boy, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And that's the joy, I guess, of traveling the globe. Jim Raymond, thank you so very much. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
We look forward to another opportunity down the road. That's going to wrap this edition of Newsmakers, where we bring into the studio people who are making a difference in the quality of life we enjoy here in Rock County. Stay tuned. Next time, we'll surprise you with somebody else who's making a difference in your life. You have a great day. Thanks.